What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Pumping out 3 videos a week, so we don't want you to miss out on any of those. So make sure you're subscribed and got the notifications on and all that good stuff. Hanging out in the boat, doing a little tackle, and I wanted to bring you guys my top 3 knots that I use every single time I go out in the water. You know, there is a bunch of different knots. I probably tie in total maybe 6 or 7 total knots, but there's 3 in particular that I use every single time I go out on the water. They're my 3 most common knots, and we're going to kind of dive into those and kind of give you a rundown on what I do and how I tie each of those and for what situations I use those knots. Okay, so let me preface all of this by saying the majority of the fishing that I do is with straight fluorocarbon, or if it's a spinning rod, it's braid to fluorocarbon. So, all of my knots to a bait is generally to fluorocarbon. I would say 90 plus 95% of the time, it's to straight fluorocarbon. I'll use mono for a topwater and that's it. And sometimes I'll use straight braid for certain situations, but these same knots will apply to braid as well as mono, but I just wanted to say typically this is to straight fluorocarbon. So first up, number 1 knot that I use the most by far, and this is, I really owe my dad to this knot. He taught me this knot. I've always tied this knot. I don't remember ever not tying this knot, and I don't really know the true name. I mean, there's all sorts of knots. You get into knots and everyone has a name for the same knot. So I believe this one's called the improved clinch or the tri-lean or something like that. So it's very simple. And I like tying this for all of my moving baits. So you see, like, I got a chatterbait, a little spinner bait, top water, buzz bait, jerk bait, everything, especially with treble hooks like this. I got this little 1/4 ounce rattle trap. I really like tying this knot over, say, the Palomar. The Palomar is probably the most popular knot if you pull a bass fisherman. But for me, when I try and tie a Palomar and you have to run the bait back through the loop, anytime you have treble hooks, like, it likes to get caught on that loop running through there, and it just adds a little bit of time. So for me, I always go with the improved clinch for all of my moving bait knots. So it's very simple. You just run the line once through the line tie, whether it's a split ring, a jig head, or whatever it may be, and then you're just going to twist the bait. So I always twist it 7 times just because I like that number. Well, I lost count now. I think that's 7 right there. Okay, so now you just got that line twisted. Now you're going to take your tag end and run it through the very bottom. It kind of created a loop when you started twisting it, so it runs it through that first loop and then back through the loop where your finger's at right there. Okay, run it back through there like that. Grab a hold of both the tag end and the main line with your hand, wet it a little bit, cinch him down just like that. Okay, trim your tag end and you're good to go. Okay, so that right there is knot number 1. I use that the most by far for everything. I mean, that knot is super strong. I've tested this on knot machines, and I mean, he is an extremely strong knot. So great knot, like I said, for tying treble hooks so the line doesn't get tangled up and everything. And that is one of the best knots to tie. It's quick, simple, fast, easy, and works extremely great. So the improved clinch is number 1. All right, now for me, there is one other knot that I tie for all of my, bottom style baits, and that is, I believe he's called the Miller knot. He's essentially the same knot as we just tied, but there's a little added loop in there that basically doubles the line through the eye of the hook and kind of doubles the strength just in case something were to happen. So I typically throw this for all of my bottom style baits. If I'm flipping a light bait, if I'm throwing a jig, something where I'm going to put a really strong snap hook set into them, I like to add that extra loop in there. So you go the same thing, you run it through the eye, but then you pull it back and just double it, run it back through the same way. And now that creates a O there, or another loop, okay? And then I like to pinch him with my right hand, so you can see we got that loop that we created and then the loop we're about to create when we go across the line. So do the same thing, give him a few wraps up the line like that, and now you run it back through both of those loops and then back through here and cinch him down the same way, just like that. And that knot right there is just an added layer of strength for if you're flipping, giving it that strong snap hook set. I just found that knot does not break. I cannot break that knot, and I really like adding that extra loop in those situations where I'm giving it that real hard hook set with a slack line, you know, really snapping that hook set. So number 2, I believe that's called the Miller knot. Okay, moving on. Knot number 3 is going to be spinning rod related. So typically for all of my, my bottom style baits on a spinning rod, Ned rig, little swim baits, things like that, I am also tying the Miller knot as well. But the only thing that is a little different is the drop shot. So for the drop shot, I really like tying the Palomar knot. Everybody knows how to tie the Palomar knot. It's a single hook. This is just a straight shank drop shot hook, or I'm using the little nose hook style drop shot hook, the TK150, or this is the TK180. But that knot is really small, and when you run the line back through the eye of the hook, it essentially folds back inside there, and it really helps the hook stand out. So the Palomar is the knot that I tie for my drop shot fishing, just because of the way it helps the hook stand out on the line, and in turn gives your bait a unique action. It helps that worm stand up, or whatever bait you're throwing, and really helps that bait have more action based on the knot that you tied. So the Palomar is my choice for the drop shot, but the knot that I was talking about for number 3 is going to be the FG knot, and that's something I tie for all of my leader line on my spinning rod techniques. Hopefully you can see that. That's a pretty well tied FG knot right there. I'm not going to walk you through how to do that because it gets pretty technical. There's tons of videos out on YouTube if you want to watch a video on how to tie the FG knot. That's where I learned how to do it, and everybody has a different way of doing it, so you kind of got to figure out your way that you like to tie the FG knot. But for me, it is a superior knot to any other leader tying knot, leader connecting knot. It's so small and thin, runs through your guides well, and it lasts forever. So you get a good FG knot tied on there, and that leader will last on that rod and reel for a really long time. So that's it, guys. That's my 3 knots, 3 most popular knots I use on the water. Appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you learned something. Make sure to leave the likes, comments, all that good stuff down below, and we'll see you guys next time.